Store and fill your cart with a wardrobe that is approved by me. Stock up on logo t-shirts, hoodies for football season, and hats for every day of the week. Trust me on this one and head over to nextround.store to get stocked up for this season.
This hour of The Next Round is presented by the Birmingham Racecourse Casino, now featuring 7 days of giveaways with your chance to win a share of up to $125,000. The more you visit the Birmingham Racecourse Casino, the more chances you have to win.
Just because you've quit going to the gym, it doesn't mean that you have to quit gym altogether. Dunaway, that is. With our Next Round podcasts open 24/7, 365, you can access gym anytime you'd like. While you may have done away with your treadmill routine, our version of Dunaway is standing by ready to get you back to your absolute best. Find all that lovely Jimmy D-led content on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and in the podcast section of nextroundlive.com. This message is sponsored by Jimmy Crypto Inc. and Jimmy Crypto for President.
Here at The Next Round, we love our guests, especially our 2024 football regulars. Auburn and Alabama fans, we've got your guys. On Mondays at 9:25, we'll be joined by Alabama offensive lineman Tyler Booker, and Tuesdays at 9:25, we chat with Auburn quarterback Pate Thorne. Join us and rep your team.
From the creators of The Next Round comes two new sites, covercrimson.com and thebarnauburn.com. Two team sites with the same excitement and information-driven content that you get every day on The Next Round. Live daily shows, recorded shows, free of charge, plus premium content with insider information starting at just $1. And it's the perfect gift for the Alabama or Auburn fan in your family. Covercrimson.com or thebarnauburn.com. Sign up today.
Happy football season. At The Next Round, we strive to make our loyal listeners feel like they're a part of the action all season long. My name is Grace McWhorter, and I do that by bringing you along for any given Saturday in Auburn or Tuscaloosa. From pregame warm-ups, touchdowns that make you feel a part of the play, and everything in between, our goal is to make you feel like you're inside Bryant-Denny or Jordan Hare. Follow along on our social media at Next Round Live on Instagram, X, and Facebook. Also, check out thebarnauburn.com and covercrimson.com while you're at it. Here's to fall Saturdays.
Want more of the show? Download the app or visit nextroundlive.com for the latest podcast, The Mystery Fifth Hour, our Not For All Ages podcast, The Last Call, and the entire Double Down Media podcast family. All at nextroundlive.com and on the Next Round app.
From the creators of The Next Round comes two new sites, covercrimson.com and thebarnauburn.com. Two team sites with the same excitement and information-driven content that you get every day on The Next Round. Live daily shows, recorded shows, free of charge, plus premium content with insider information starting at just $1. And it's the perfect gift for the Alabama or Auburn fan in your family. Covercrimson.com or thebarnauburn.com. Sign up today.
Follow Next Round Live on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. The social media team at Next Round Live is dedicated to giving you daily news conferences and practice video from UAB, Alabama, Auburn, and around college football. Follow and compare to the sites you used to visit. You'll also get the latest highlights and news from the Next Round Daily Show. Turn on the notifications so you don't miss a thing. Next Round Live on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. See more at nextroundlive.com.
By now, you guys know how I feel about my fashion. However, did you know that I care about your fashion choices? Cargo shorts are out, flip-flops are only appropriate on the boat, and please throw away that stained t-shirt from college. You may be thinking, EG, that's all I own. What do I do? Here's what you do. Go to nextround.store and fill your cart with a wardrobe that is approved by me. Stock up on logo t-shirts, hoodies for football season, and hats for every day of the week. Trust me on this one and head over to nextround.store to get stocked up for this season.
Just because you've quit going to the gym, it doesn't mean that you have to quit gym altogether. Dunaway, that is. With our Next Round podcasts open 24/7, 365, you can access gym anytime you'd like. While you may have done away with your treadmill routine, our version of Dunaway is standing by ready to get you back to your absolute best. Find all that lovely Jimmy D-led content on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and in the podcast section of nextroundlive.com. This message is sponsored by Jimmy Crypto Inc. and Jimmy Crypto for President. The World Wide Web is a large place. Find all your favorite people and content in the same spot. NextRoundLive.com is full of wonderful tidbits about the show you know and love. Find our gear, listen to your favorite personalities, follow our socials, and enjoy your trip to NextRoundLive.com.
Call the Next Round now at 205-734-0923. Jim Dunaway, Lance Taylor, Ryan Brown, Live from the Birmingham Racecourse Casino Studios, the next round, presented by Bud Light, is on now.
SMU's in, Alabama's not. We'll get to all the reaction and talk about the crazy weekend in the NFL, what's ahead with bowl games and all of that as we move through. We'll try to spread it out and not get to everything in the first segment, like how we grade the committee. We'll save that for later on. What the future looks like, we'll get to that later on. But let's start off reacting to what we saw. And I'm gonna say this off the top. I am disappointed Alabama's not in, but I have found it very hard since even when I was going to bed Saturday night to feel upset or angered that Alabama's not in. Does that make sense? I don't feel the anger like Alabama somehow got shunned like I thought I would if Alabama ever missed if Alabama ever showed up on that first team outline.
Yeah, look, I think if you're Alabama, South Carolina, Miami, Ole Miss, any of these teams can't bitch. I mean, look, you had every opportunity, and all of those teams had bad losses. And I think everyone realized the way the ACC championship game played out was the worst case scenario for Alabama. You could even see in Rhett Lashley when he was getting interviewed going into the fourth quarter how lost he was. Hey, man, we're going to go out there and we're going to fight this fourth quarter. But, I mean, he seemed rattled, knowing we're down 17 and we're going to get bumped out of the college football playoff.
I wonder what that line was, Brown, because I was thinking about that because I had said earlier in our Saturday morning show that, and maybe even on Friday, that a blowout, I thought Clemson was going to win the game, and our Alabama's best path to get in there would be a blowout at that point. Because I'd said all week, SMU is in. They're not going to penalize them. They're going to look like a one-loss team. And when Clemson jumped out early, I'm like, okay, you've got to cheer for a blowout here. And I wonder what that line would have been. If it had held at 17.
I think 10.
10 was enough?
I think 10 was enough. Yeah, because if they would have crapped back, I mean, the way they came back, because they never were in the game until they were in the game late in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. And
so
then,
if they would have only gotten in within an arm's reach, and let's not forget that Clemson played their best game of the year to get to where they were. I mean, 0 penalties, 0 turnovers. I mean, everything broke right for Clemson. But if they would have held them, 10 or more, I think they're out. Obviously, 17, they were out. I think everybody believed they were out at that point. And the unfortunate thing, if it unfolded the other way, if they blew the 17-point lead and ended up losing, I think they might be out that way.
Maybe.
It's wild that this all came down to one quarter then.
Yeah.
Because that's essentially what you're saying, is this all came down to one quarter of football.
Actually, it probably came down to a kick because I felt like SMU had the momentum then. And if they had not got the great kick return, the one great pass, the timeout, and the 56-yard field goal.
That was unbelievable, that sequence.
It goes to overtime at that point, and I believe SMU wins it in overtime.
I think they would have too, but I think you're going to get the same exact outcome, obviously, that you got. Once it got to overtime, they weren't going to declare a loser in their mind. You know what I'm saying?
No, but if SMU won,
no, I know what you're saying. But I'm saying, as I'm watching that, I'm thinking if this thing gets to overtime, Alabama, I mean, if they were going to put SMU in, they're going to put them in overtime.
Yeah, but at that point, you had the path of the automatic bid and Alabama getting in.
Right. I get all that. I'm just saying, had it gotten to overtime, you were going to get the same conclusion. That's what I was thinking while I'm watching the game. And I don't know. I kind of thought going to the fourth quarter, because SMU was so out of sorts, I thought they're probably going to start panicking here. There might be the pick six that makes it a 24-point game, and it's going to look a lot worse.
Yeah, look, at 17, I think they were out. What blew me away was how the committee bracketed this thing.
Yeah, well, let's get to that. Let's get Alabama's reaction being out first, because it's a broken system in year one. And truthfully, as not angered as I am, upset, yes, not angered that Alabama's not in, I'm also less excited about the bracket as I am than I ever was any of the projections we've ever done over there for most of the part. It just, as now it's on paper, I'm like, okay, it's good. It's better than just 2 games, but I don't know. Let's start with the reaction, though, first of Alabama not being in. Kalen DeBoer, the team did not gather yesterday. They got together last night for their football banquet, and that's when Kalen DeBoer did his media availability. And here's the Alabama coach talking about missing the 12-team playoff, and he's got sort of the same feelings a lot of people do. You got to take care of your own business.
Yeah, obviously news of the day, and just everything around the playoff. Certainly disappointed that we weren't one of the 12 selected. Certainly feel we're one of those, and there's things that obviously we got to do and could have done this year, but got to make sure it's not in other people's hands, and keep ourselves kind of focused on that next year. Just knowing that the process doesn't always end up how you think it is, how you think it's gonna.
Yeah, I mean, you got to take care of your own business. I mean, you go back to that trip to Norman. Alabama is in every bracket projection, and you just beat Oklahoma and Auburn. At that point, you're going to the SEC championship, win or lose. You're gonna be in this thing. You got to take care of your own business. And that Oklahoma game, they never, ever, ever was able to shuck that thing.
Yeah, well, I think if that's a one possession game, I think Bama maybe gets in. I know it sounds crazy.
Maybe so. I don't know. It just looks so bad. You don't know how good how close it would have had to have been. But I mean that's the difficult part. You can talk strength of schedule all you want. I know we'll get to that too. But ultimately, you got down to a 2-game season against 2 teams that are not bowl eligible. If you beat Oklahoma, they're not bowl eligible.
That's right.
2 non-bowl eligible teams. That's all you got to do. If you're Alabama, you got to beat 2 non-bowl eligible teams to be in the college football playoff. They couldn't do that.
Well, no, you just need to beat one.
Well, I mean, had you beaten Oklahoma, you had to beat Auburn too. Is my point. Like,
oh yeah.
That's my point. You got to that season. You got to the 10-game mark, and like you said, Jim, you went to Norman, unquestionably in the college football playoffs.
Yep.
There's nobody arguing that you're out of it. Nobody.
A path to be the 2 or the 5, 6, 7 seed.
That's right. You're even in Atlanta at that point.
Yeah. You're going to Atlanta, and you're hosting a game if you lose in Atlanta.
All you got left in front of you are 2 non-bowl eligible teams. You couldn't take care of that, and that's why Alabama's in the ReliaQuest Bowl and not playing on campus somewhere this week.
I haven't heard any outrage from Alabama fans, really. I've heard some, but not nearly as much as you would think, because I think after Clemson, the way they won that game, the way SMU came back, I think Alabama fans had time to process it. And when they continue to hear about the Oklahoma loss, I mean, you can't really say much about that. You got run off the field.
Yeah. It was 24-3
by a bad team,
by an offensively challenged team that had very few, if any, scholarship wide receivers.
Like, it's roughly the same outcome as Ole Miss Georgia.
Yeah,
I mean, it's roughly the same outcome as Ole Miss Georgia, right? That was
28-10.
28-10.
Yeah,
I mean, roughly the same outcome.
It's really the same outcome as Ole Miss South Carolina, and when you were evaluating
24-3.
South Carolina, that was the one you sit there and you went, yeah, but that Ole Miss, there was separation there. That Ole Miss game, so that hung around their neck a little bit.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, Georgia. Now, obviously, Georgia got the automatic, but you could survive it if it's a good team. But when you do that to a bad team, that is just going to hang around your neck, and it's why Alabama. Point to whatever you want. The trip to Oklahoma, and I think the committee had to look at that and say Alabama knew what they were playing for, and they delivered that performance. And I think that goes a long way too. Like, I don't know if you're supposed to be saying, do we trust this team in the playoffs if we put them in there?
Yeah.
I don't know if you're supposed to go that far as the committee, but I would have asked that about Alabama. Do I trust them?
Yeah.
We've seen them one time in this situation with all that pressure, and they crapped the bed.
It's kind of a hypothetical, but that's one of those things that even if I was on the committee and I was told not to do hypotheticals, that would be in my mind. Yeah. How well do you trust? But who do you really trust?
That's the other part of it, Lance. I can't trust 12 of them.
2 more things. Josh Pate joins us in the next segment. But before Brownie tells us about A+, and LT tells us about our friends at Hemp Hill, I want to just say that the DNA of this team may be what you're talking about. The final thought, the one-liner. Was it our senior year in high school? You had a one-line thought for the yearbook about your future.
Yeah.
The one-line, or your memory of high school, whatever. The one-line memory I'll have of this Alabama team, this group of players, is that when they knew what was on the line, when they had total control of everything in themselves, that's when they played their worst football. When they beat Georgia and they became the number 1 team in the country, they didn't deliver for a while. And then when they got back into a good place and knew all they had to do was beat Oklahoma and Auburn, they didn't deliver when they had to. That's the DNA of this team. 2 different times They had control of college football and their path to this playoff in a good place, and both times they didn't deliver. That's not the DNA that we've experienced the last 17 years. And we'll talk about Kalen DeBoer moving forward because he's sending a lot of great non-cryptic messages. Just really an interesting time for Alabama football as they're, quote-unquote, the first team out of the first 12-team playoff. The show being brought to you by A+.
A+ Tile Home Remodeling. That is Brad Bell. When it came time to redo the master bath in the Brown home, we had some ideas. We wanted it done a certain way. And my wife wanted to make sure, obviously, we had the right person for the job. So she scoured the internet looking for certain contractors, talking to contractors, people that had used contractors, read a ton of reviews, and she picked Brad Bell, A+ Tile Home Remodeling. I'm glad she did. He came in. We gave Brad our vision, and that's the vision he did. He didn't try to sell us on something else. In fact, I'll tell you what Brad told me. He's like, you've seen these one-day bathroom remodels? I was like, yeah. He goes, just go price it. He goes, it's going to be more than my quote, and they don't do the same level of work. He's absolutely right about that. He specializes in master bath, kitchen, and master bedroom closets, if that's what you're looking for. Anything in your home. 205-422-1758. That's Brad Bell, A+ Tile Home Remodeling. 205-422-1758. Here's his website as well. You can see more before and afters, videos, get more info. A+bathandkitchen.com. That is A+bathandkitchen.com.
So 45 plays, Lance's lock this week. 30-15, 6-2 yesterday.
Can't beat that.
One of those losses by a half point. It's been a really good week. We close it out tonight with a little Monday night football action, some NBA, one game on the slate there, a little college hoops. All at lanceslog.com. Close out the week with us. Always brought to you by friends. Hemphill Services. Trust the name. Birmingham has trusted since 1954 for all of your plumbing, heating, and cooling issues. If any of these arise in your home or business, they are ready to serve you. Call Adam, Chad, Andrew, the guys there, 205-229-2090. Hard to stop a train. Hemphillservices.com.
Okay, to your point, Lance, you look at this bracket and you say what? I look at it and I say, it's got so many flaws, and it's not as good as it could be.
No, it's not. And so this is the funny thing. I went to we'll call it a local English pub for brunch yesterday.
Okay.
They normally have soccer on.
Right.
I made sure that they had one of the TVs on. I saw our man Joe O'Neill in there from CPAP Plus.
Oh, yeah?
And so I started talking to these different Alabama fans before everything got laid out. And Emily Grace had sent us Brett McMurphy, everybody trying to get in front and just ruin the selection show for everyone.
Well, Brett had a good source, apparently.
That he broke that Alabama's out. So I saw that, and I had told Alabama fans late night on Saturday, early morning Sunday, that I really believed the committee was going to have this 5-12 SMU Texas with this incredible storyline. And when they laid out, when the bracket went Clemson at the 12 seed, I was like, damn, how can they put SMU in front of Clemson? So at that point, and the way everything laid out, I was like, oh my gosh, maybe Bama, maybe he got bad information. I didn't want to say anything. I didn't want to ruin it, already knowing, so I just played up the drama with everybody.
Oh, so they had not seen the Brett McMurphy tweet.
No,
so you're like,
no. Yeah, so I continued to talk about, I didn't think Bama was going to be in, but then when I saw that SMU was, or excuse me, that Clemson was going to Austin and that the only thing left was that 11th seed, I didn't think they would put SMU in front of Clemson, so I was like, maybe Bama did get in.
Yeah, but
they didn't.
Why would you
not? Why would you not? Does Texas have so much power? They're like, we're
I don't
not
know.
playing SMU.
I had not really thought about that until I saw you tweet it, that the obvious matchup was an SMU-Texas matchup. I had not really even thought of that
Well,
one.
you think
I
that's
had scribbled it down late night. I was going to do a TikTok for it, but I ended up doing something else. So I was sitting there, the bracket, and I was like, the way I did it, I actually was like you. I had SMU, Texas, and I even had Indiana, Notre Dame, and I was thinking to myself, God, are they going to regionalize it that much? But the way I laid it out was exactly like that.
Yeah, and think about how different the first round matchups would be. Like if you had Clemson playing at Penn State, those are two brands. That's a game you can get behind. if you had the angle of SMU, Texas, I don't even know the last time they played. That is something you can get behind. Yep. I heard Indiana Notre Dame just get in tickets for $1,200 right now.
Yeah.
And then obviously the other game, Tennessee Ohio State's fantastic. So I think you would have had a really good first round. But now you've got these flaws in the first round, and then you've got Boise and Arizona State sitting there. A reward, like if Alabama would have gotten in against Penn State, and all they have to do is beat Penn State, and then they get Boise in the quarters.
Well, Oregon has the hardest path.
Oh, yeah.
There's a chance Oregon, to win the national championship, has to play they're the betting favorite. They have to play the second, third, and fourth betting favorites to be national champions.
Ohio State, Texas, Georgia to win the national championship.
That could be their path.
That's
They'd
crazy.
have to play 4-3-2 to be the national champion.
Well, again, it's what happened when we put so much emphasis on conference champions.
Yeah.
I mean, this was inevitable.
No way we can have the same format next year.
Well, we will next year. 100% it's locked in.
But is it? I
mean, it's locked in. One more year
before it gets blown up and we go to something else.
Which will happen.
It was going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
It will definitely happen now. It'll be SEC, Big Ten dictating the terms, and it'll be very different. But it'll be different. But one more year of this contract. But I think I'm like you. I think they can tweak it to where we're just going to see 12 teams. Automatic bids, but they're going to do it. They don't get automatic buys.
Look, you should be excited about getting into this field, and then once you're in it, then we can figure out who should be rewarded once you're in it. Arizona State is playing great football right now.
They really are. I mean, I watch them and I'm like, maybe they're not the layup we think they are, but I don't know that they need a bye.
Yeah, I don't think they need a bye. And the same with Boise. I mean, Boise's one blemish was a 3-point loss in Austin. It's one of the top 2 or 3 losses in all of college football.
I don't know how did you scribble out the way you thought every seed was going to go? Because I had them bending the knee to the Power 4 conferences. I had Boise not with the bye. And I actually had Arizona State as the 3 seed and Clemson as the 4 seed.
Oh, I didn't. I thought Boise and Arizona State were going to be in.
Yeah.
Again, Clemson, I still cannot believe they're in the college football playoff.
I really can't either. The year they've had.
They won their way in, but they got there because they got some help from Fran Brown and others, and they played a great football game.
Dabo is so annoying. Yeah. That there is a playoff team. It's like the ACC. Hey, we'll give you an extra $75,000 just to make sure if you win this game, that's a playoff team.
Did you start thinking about it, though, when they had zero penalties? Zero penalties.
Yep.
That's like if I'm Rhett Lashley, and he was furious.
Yeah. But I said that in the pregame show too. I said, and I was mansplaining to Emily Grace. I'm bad about doing that. I was like, but I was doing it to Brown too. I was like, hey, remember in basketball, the officials that do the ACC and the SEC, the Big Ten, the Big 12, they're the same guys. They just rotate around the country. You'll have a group of guys doing a North Carolina game that the next day they're in Auburn doing a basketball game. In football, you literally have SEC officiating crews, ACC officiating crews. So you watch this game tonight and see if you see anything that tries to get the ACC 2 teams in.
Well, no penalties will do it.
Yeah, zero penalties is a step in the right direction.
I love how petty the coaches were over the weekend. The best was Sark's halftime interview. Yeah. Well, maybe they'll get some holding calls.
Yeah, you don't catch Laura Rutledge. I think one of the most prepared broadcasters.
Yeah, she was.
She is the best. She does everything. She hosts shows.
Now do you, Holly?
Yeah, it's like, hey, what do you do? Well, maybe they'll call them for some holding penalties. Awkward pause. Holly, what do you have?
I mean, and then Kirby Smart calling out Greg Sankey.
Boy, that was awkward.
Oh, we'll get to that.
That was awkward.
That was pretty awesome, though, I thought.
Yeah. So we'll get to all that as we continue on. Scheduling. Alabama SEC future scheduling is a big topic. We'll get to that still in this opening segment before we get to Josh Pate, because I know he may bring it up. Michelson Laser Vision bringing you part of the show today.
Yeah, 205-969-8100. That is the number that I called 21 years ago. Everyone that I've talked to that has gotten the LASIK procedure done from Dr. Mark or Dr. Jen Michelson absolutely loves their experience. I had the 2200 vision. I was legally blind without the aid of contacts. 2015 better than 2020. Make the phone call that I made. Do you or a family member need to make your benefit selection at work now? Do you know your FSA or flex spending can be used to help you see clearly without the hassle of glasses or contacts? Yes, LASIK at Michelson Laser Vision might be a great choice for you. 205-969-8100. Ask for Amy. Tell her the next round sent you. For more information, michelsonlaservision.com.
Okay, so the saber rattling from a lot of SEC folks is that why strength of schedule was not a big factor. So why do we have to schedule big out-of-conference games anymore? If you're not going to factor that in, why do we need these big showdowns that you get? Now, we're saying this after Alabama doesn't make the playoffs. Alabama was unbeaten out of conference, so it did not impact their playoff path at all.
Yeah, and did not have a good out-of-conference schedule either.
No, Wisconsin was supposed to be that marquee game. Wisconsin ended up being
they're a bad team.
Very mid. And then
South Florida was their toughest game out of conference.
That's actually not a good look. Then you played Mercer, not a good look. So you really didn't have that daunting schedule. Now, moving forward, you do have some big games. And Kalen DeBoer spoke afterwards about, is it even worth playing any tough out-of-conference games? Now, the ESPN ABC would tell you, we need you to because we're paying you a lot of money. The people that sell tickets in Tuscaloosa say, hey, it'd be nice if we played occasionally some good out-of-conference games. But the discussion is, well, what do you do scheduling moving forward? Here's more Kalen DeBoer.
As far as like the future, that's something that I'll let kind of Greg lead the charge on. And, he has a understanding and kind of we'll figure that out moving forward. But that's not really, we want to play competitive games. We want to play the best games and, I understand how it didn't feel like that. It really definitely wasn't rewarded. It felt like, with, our schedule and the wins we had against teams, that were ranked or, now ranked or even ranked at the time. Cause there's, I think even like an LSU, at the time was ranked and isn't anymore. But, I know we got some what would you consider higher profile games against, programs that traditionally have been very successful. We want to be a part of that. We want that to happen. That's the exciting thing about college football, is being in as many big games as possible. We don't want to back down to that. We want to be a part of it. And, that hopefully will be rewarded down the road.
Yeah, there's separate ways to look at this. One of them may be this. What if Wisconsin was what Wisconsin has been before? What if Wisconsin
was Indiana
this year? Then Alabama still had 3 losses. If you had gone on the road to beat what would be Indiana with a brand,
they're in.
Then that may have helped you get over that last. So I don't know, ditching great out-of-conference games is the path to go because it can be a benefit if you win those games.
Well, it was really the only reason Alabama was even in the discussion was their strength of schedule, but primarily that came from the Southeastern Conference. To your point, if Wisconsin had been Indiana this year and you got a win over Wisconsin and a win over Georgia?
Yep.
Yeah, you're probably in front of SMU. I would agree with that.
I think it is in the moment, and people are really taking a look at this. I think we all agreed that now that we moved to a 12-team playoff, we were going to see more of these awesome out-of-conference matchups because 2 and 3 loss teams could get in at that point. Now we've, the previous format, we never had a 2-loss team in. Now, year one, we haven't had a 3-loss team. When will you get that 3-loss team in? I could see, though,
technically Clemson won their
way. But as an at-large, you mean, yeah.
I just wonder, like Florida State, Georgia, they've got a home-and-home coming up 27-28. Like, do you get on the phone and, to make a point, hey, look, let's for the betterment of both programs, let's cancel this thing. And TV partners ultimately are the ones calling the shot, so they're going to get extremely pissed off.
But now here's what I would say. And first of all, college football scheduling is done so stupidly. We schedule these games so far out in advance.
And you have no idea who's going to be good and who's not, who's going to be coaching.
And so what it creates is we don't get a good cross-section of Big Ten versus SEC or to even gauge how good these conferences look against one another, right?
Yep.
You often get mismatches like Alabama and Wisconsin. But my point would be, this seems really knee-jerk right now because, number one, every committee evaluates stuff differently. This is not going to be the same committee every year.
No.
Ward Manuel will not be sitting in the main chair drinking his bottle of Perrier watching games on a conference table desk in the future. That's going to be somebody different. They may value out-of-conference games more than somebody else. And number two, it's not the same. We're not going to have the same system by the time these games roll around. Like you start talking about canceling games 10 years from now, it's going to be a totally different system by then.
You can't
such a knee-jerk reaction.
You can't cancel these games in the future because I believe you have to have something to sell tickets at an enormous price that you're having to sell these tickets. The fans do not want Mercer. They don't.
That's right.
They don't really want South Florida and Western Kentucky.
And to Lance's point, ESPN's paying billions of dollars for the SEC.
Yep.
Fox, CBS, and NBC are paying billions of dollars for the Big Ten. They want those games.
Yeah.
That's the only way they keep paying that kind of money.
My God, Dave Neal needs a break. He cannot do, UT Martin versus Tennessee the rest of his career.
Yeah, I almost wish the networks would have been in control of the seeding and the bracketing.
Yeah.
No, they do too, by the way.
Texas and SMU should be playing. I want to know why they're not playing. And you guys tell me, how is Clemson seated behind SMU?
It is. I did not stop and think about that yesterday as I was taking it in real time. But it is kind of weird. Like, we just beat them on the same field, right?
If you're an Alabama
we're the
fan,
conference champion.
Don't you get a little excited at that moment when you see Clemson as the 12? Because that's all I was thinking. I was like, they're not going to put SMU in front of Clemson. But I'd already seen Brett McMurphy.
Yeah, I mean, had I not seen Brett McMurphy's tweet, I might have been like, whoa, time out now.
But I was like you. I wasn't 100% sure that Brett got great information. But it came from one committee member. I promise you it did. And I am of the belief you should. I joke that you should. I hope everybody took it as a joke. You should how they make a reporter get on the witness stand. I'm going to exercise my First Amendment right, free press. Which is the free press? Is it First Amendment right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. My First Amendment right. I'm not going to tell you my sources.
Right.
And they're like, well, I'm going to hold you in contempt and put you in jail. Well, you have to do that. And the reporter goes in jail for a few days until finally he breaks. He decides he doesn't want just bread and water. He's tired of being in the hole.
It was Ward Manual.
Yeah, it was Ward Manual. I joked that we should do that to Brett McMurphy and find out which committee member leaked it.
Yeah, I
would
11
years, Ross Dellinger said there has not been a leak.
Nope.
11 years.
It has been an extremely buttoned-up room.
I like Brett. I don't know what you do with that, but I mean,
No, it's not Brett's fault. It's the person inside the room.
I know, but I hate the fact that it was leaked because it completely ruins the entire show.
It does. Yeah. Brett's just doing his job, but you're right. It ruined the entire show because we know Brett, and I know Brett's a good reporter. And that is a big one to miss. I thought if Brett tweets that.
Oh, yeah. That's why I never put my head fully around that he couldn't have gotten this thing wrong. Do you think it's beyond a committee member or the Action Network to go, hey, we got $25,000. Get us a leak in there. And then you're able to pay somebody $25,000.
It's not beyond them, no.
I believe Brett McMurphy breaks more stories than anybody else.
He may. I don't know.
Football. I think he knows before everyone else. He and Pete Thamel are good. I think Brett beats Pete to the punch more often.
I mentioned this to Dunaway. ESPN's got a full-time reporter covering the college football playoff, Heather Dinich. And, I don't know if ESPN lets her break that story.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because it ruins their show.
Yeah, they wouldn't.
Even if she knew and she's like, I know SMU's in, I think ESPN would be like, well, you can't report it.
ESPN is pissed right now at the Action Network.
Yeah. I personally think you could hear Herb Street, his mic was open when it shouldn't have been. And I think he was reacting to Brett McMurphy had tweeted it out. They were letting him know that McMurphy's tweeted out that SMU's in. And he said something, and I believe it was Herb Street talking because it was off camera. They should find out who the leak is, basically. Yeah. And, that's unfortunate. It's something like that.
And I agree. I mean, look, this is...
Well, they should be off.
That's about as dramatic of television as you will get when it comes to real time. People go back to the reality shows like Survivor and American Idol.
Yep.
I mean, this was in the moment where everybody was so excited about 11 o'clock, and then at what time? 10:55 it went out.
Yeah, it was right before.
Yeah, it was right before.
Yeah, EG ruined it for me.
She wrote it for me too.
Yeah, I wouldn't have.
You wouldn't have looked. You wouldn't have seen Brett's tweet.
I wasn't on Twitter, so I was watching it real time because you never know with your television, whether you're a second, a minute behind, or whatever. All right, Josh Pate joins us on the other side. Show being brought to you by a couple of great folks, including our friends at the Pants Store. If you're getting ready for the holidays, nothing for the Bama or Auburn fan in your life says, hey, congratulations on another great year. Hopefully 2025 is better. Merry Christmas. Here's great Bama and Auburn gear from the Pants Store. Pantstore.com. Our friends in Birmingham, Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, Auburn, and Leeds. It's your game day headquarters. Gentile, Antigua, Cutter and Buckhorn, and Legend, and all the ladies' rompers, dresses, and so much more. Free alterations, free gift wrapping. All right there. Nothing says Roll Tide and War Eagle like the Pants Store. Pantstore.com, Brown.
And go see American and RV from Johnston RV Center, I-65, exit 304 in Coleman, 334 in Decatur. Great prices right now for you to go see those fall leaves and enjoy some trips Travel trailers as low as $145 a month. Fifth wheels, $45,000 and more in savings. You can get a warranty forever from RV Warranty Forever on anything that is new or qualifying pre-owned at Johnston RV Center, I-65, exit 304 in Coleman, 334 in Decatur, johnstonrvcenter.com. Josh Pate is next.
Follow Scott Forrester on Twitter at scottforestertv.
Hey, this is Matt Roth, the franchisee of Walk On Sports Bistro in Birmingham. With the kickoff of football season, come visit us at one of our 3 locations, Stadium Trace, Greystone, or Trussville. Come enjoy our scratch kitchen menu while watching one of our 80 TVs. Whether you're looking for a pre- or post-game celebration, game day, or date night, we've got you covered. It's all about the win at Walk On Sports Bistro. Walk On, where everybody needs a little playing time.
Storm season is here. Make sure you have a plan of action in place right now. Greg from Pell City and Storm Restoration Roofing should be your first call when storms hit. Insurance companies love working with Storm Restoration Roofing because of Greg Nelson's name and reputation in the industry. When storms hit, call Greg Nelson. He's local, 205-542-3531. He's the home of the free no-cost roof inspection. Greg from Pell City on Facebook, 205-542-3531. It's Storm Restoration Roofing. From the creators of The Next Round comes 2 new sites, covercrimson.com and thebarnauburn.com. 2 team sites with the same excitement and information-driven content that you get every day on The Next Round. Live daily shows, recorded shows, free of charge, plus premium content with insider information starting at just $1. And it's the perfect gift for the Alabama or Auburn fan in your family. Covercrimson.com or thebarnauburn.com. Sign up today.
Happy football season. At the Next Round, we strive to make our loyal listeners feel like they're a part of the action all season long. My name is Emily Grace McWhorter, and I do that by bringing you along for any given Saturday in Auburn or Tuscaloosa. From pregame warm-ups, touchdowns that make you feel a part of the play, and everything in between, our goal is to make you feel like you're inside Bryant-Denny or Jordan-Hare. Follow along on our social media at Next Round Live on Instagram, X, and Facebook. Also, check out thebarnauburn.com and covercrimson.com while you're at it. Here's to fall Saturdays.
From the creators of The Next Round comes 2 new sites, covercrimson.com and thebarnauburn.com. 2 team sites with the same excitement and information-driven content that you get every day on The Next Round. Live daily shows, recorded shows, free of charge, plus premium content with insider information starting at just $1. And it's the perfect gift for the Alabama or Auburn fan in your family. Covercrimson.com or thebarnauburn.com. Sign up today.
Follow Next Round Live on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. The social media team at Next Round Live is dedicated to giving you daily news conferences and practice video from UAB, Alabama, Auburn, and around college football. Follow and compare to the sites you used to visit. You'll also get the latest highlights and news from the Next Round Daily Show. Turn on the notifications so you don't miss a thing. Next Round Live on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. See more at nextroundlive.com.
By now, you guys know how I feel about my fashion. However, did you know that I care about your fashion choices? Cargo shorts are out, flip-flops are only appropriate on the boat, and please throw away that stained t-shirt from college. You may be thinking, EG, that's all I own. What do I do? Here's what you do. Go to nextround.store and fill your cart with a wardrobe that is approved by me. Stock up on logo t-shirts, hoodies for football season, and hats for every day of the week. Trust me on this one and head over to nextround.store to get stocked up for this season.
Twin Peaks is the best in the game. Here, you're in the red zone for every college rivalry and divisional matchup all season long. On game day, you never have to decide which teams to watch, only what combination of bites, burgers, wings, and more to order. Plus, where else are your favorite draft beers always poured at a frozen 29 degrees? Only at Twin Peaks, the #1 sports bar.
Stick around after the sun sets. Twin Peaks is open really late. Wind down with bourbon and late night bites. Only at Twin Peaks.
My apologies to Josh Pate. I know he's the only guy that gets paid close to Juan Soto money, so that probably cost me about $100,000 for the extra 2 minutes that he had to sit there and wait on us. So we'll get to that Soto contract in a moment, but let's bring in college football's Juan Soto.
Wow, what a compliment to you, Pate. I didn't see that one coming this morning.
Hey, if you think you're surprised, imagine me. I cannot stress enough to the viewer, those are Dunaway's words. not mine and not management's.
Yeah.
Hey, we do know that you have a lot of pull and a lot of sources. Please tell me, because we had saw Brett McMurphy ruined it for everybody yesterday with the Action Network sending this thing out. But when I saw Clemson seeded 12, I was like, damn, how are they going to put SMU in front of Clemson? They did. But more importantly, going into this, Pate, I really thought we were going to get an SMU-Texas matchup. And then I hear behind the scenes, Texas did not want that matchup. And I don't know, what have you heard about this? Because that would have been, when you look at the first round, there are flaws. But if you put that game and then you put Clemson, Penn State, I think all of these games are appealing.
Yeah, I do too. And we could have, correct me if I'm wrong, we could have maintained Indiana, Notre Dame and had SMU, Texas. So we could have had two of those little in-state rivalries. We could have slapped a Southwest Conference sticker on that SMU Texas game. Craig James could have reemerged. Like, imagine all the things that could have surrounded that game. So I was with you. I was on air live when the whole thing was being announced. And granted, I don't call myself a bracketologist by any stretch, but I had loosely familiarized myself with all of the different formats and different possibilities and simulations. And so I was like you. I had already seen the McMurphy tweet. We had already had some back channeling as well to where I kind of knew SMU was in. I just figured they're 12. So I'd gone ahead and I started filling out my little bracket in front of me. And then I looked over at the screen on ESPN. We had it on a side monitor, and I saw Clemson's 12. I believe our guidance that SMU is in, but if SMU is in, they would certainly be 12, right? I mean, the team that beat them for the conference title game, if the resumes are comparable, they're going to be above them. They weren't. And so SMU pops up at 11. So again, I don't drown myself in the if, then and or, then whatever. I wasn't fluent in that. So Marcelo was on set with me, and we were live, and I said, does that surprise you that SMU is ahead of Clemson? And he was almost nonchalant. He was like, no, I kind of expected that. So maybe that was expected. I heard the same thing you did about Texas not wanting that, but apparently not as many people were surprised as you and I were about that. That made no sense to me.
Yeah, you obviously, though, were not perfectly happy with the bracket. I caught you on Dusty and Danny this morning on the way in. If you would, just your opening statement again, because I want to give you a chance to sort of let everybody know how you felt about what happened yesterday.
Yeah, so I don't feel like anyone got screwed out of a spot. I don't believe Alabama should have been in. I don't believe Ole Miss should have been in. I don't believe South Carolina should have been in, given the parameters that the committee currently works under. So the gripes I have are format-based. I can't stand auto bids. I can't stand the concept that the 16 seed is automatically in because they won a conference. I can't stand the concept that not only does Boise get in, they have a first-round bye because they arbitrarily did something like winning a conference, which, if we're in pro sports, means something, because when properly calibrated for strength of schedule scaling, most divisions are roughly comparable. I mean, the best and the worst division in the NFL any given year is still tightly compacted relative to the best and worst conference in college football any given year. So I've got a problem with the formatting, not only because it unjustly gives certain teams first-round byes, but it affects the integrity of the bracket downstream. There's no reason why we should be looking at Penn State's path right now and saying, I wonder if I would prefer that over the team that beat him in the conference title game. If that's even in question, you've screwed up the bracket, okay? Then the second part that a lot of people have taken issue with is your Greg Burns of the world talking about how we may have to readjust how we schedule out of conference in the future. I saw Jim Nagy a little while ago, last night even. He was saying, I get the beef that a lot of these SEC coaches have because we look at the strength of their rosters in the SEC, and there are more NFL players. The rosters are littered. Even your Florida roster is littered with future pros. I think some people are just obtuse towards the points being made there. I think there are far more people who are plenty smart enough to know the points that they are making, but they also cleverly understand how to redirect and reshift those ways of thinking into a preset narrative funnel, which ironically is what they would accuse me of doing right now. My biggest beef is not even with the way the selection happened this time around. I don't have a huge problem with the field. I may change the order a little bit. I don't have a problem with it. I have an overarching problem that existed a month ago, long before the playoff committee handed down their rankings, and that is I don't think strength of schedule is properly interpreted in this sport. I do not at all adhere to just the blind SOS column on a screen that ESPN throws up. I'm a believer that, number one, not all 6-6 teams are created equal. I believe Ole Miss, just going to pluck a game out of obscurity for reference point. I believe the Ole Miss team that went to Florida and lost to that Florida team played a top 20 caliber opponent that day. They'll never get credit for that. They will actually get criticized for it because there is not enough room in the entire zeitgeist to interpret that, hey, Florida's got a lot of pros on that team. They had their quarterback that they should have started the whole year, starting the back half. The swamp was insane that day. That is different than going and playing Wyoming or Nevada. It just is. But you'll get similar credit for that as a Boise would for going and playing against Nevada. I hate it. And then the other part of that is with Greg Byrne making the point he made about scheduling. I think all the guys saying, this is not that hard to understand because I understand it. All the guys saying is, the SEC schedule is tough. We think it is tough. We can't control that. What we're going to do is we're going to take hold of what we do control in the future. And if you're telling us that strength of schedule, relatively speaking, is not going to be defined properly and matter as much, not saying it didn't matter at all, but it's not going to matter as much, then we're going to deflate the value and intensity of the part we can control of our schedule as much as we can. That makes sense to me. I hate it, because I don't think that's the way college athletics or college football should go. But I get it. I get the point they're trying to make. So my problem is with the format. My problem is with the process. I do not, ironically, have a huge problem with the teams they put in this year. I don't care if they put SMU in. Bama screwed themselves. The committee didn't screw Bama. Bama screwed themselves. But long-term, teams will eventually get screwed and not have benefit of doubt because of arbitrary metrics that I don't think are properly tracked in the sport.
Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday is when you see the Josh Pate College Football Show at Josh Pate CFB. That show is on YouTube. Do the same thing you do for us, please. Subscribe, set your alerts, give him thumbs ups. The same thing we ask you to do for us, do for Josh. He's on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. So in your mind, your top four seeds, if it was Josh Pate's college football playoff, would have been Oregon, Georgia, Texas, Penn State then?
Yeah, it would have been whatever the real top four is.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
how I would seed it. I would have I would ban the phrase auto bid. I wouldn't have it anywhere near my process. I would have put the top four in there.
Yeah. I think I've said this all along. If you want to do something for conference champions, I maybe guarantee them a home game. So Clemson would have been the 8th seed. They won a conference championship. They get to play at Death Valley. I mean, to me, that is enough of a reward for winning a conference championship.
I think it is. I think all three of you know as well as I do, and everyone watching, is depending on your college football worldview, you're always going to come to an impasse in this argument. There are those who think that talking about college football conferences the way you talk about pro football conferences is perfectly fine. And there are those of us who think this is an apples to bowling ball comparison. Nothing about college football's landscape looks like the NFL. All conferences are not equal. It's possible that in any given year, 3 of the best teams in the country play in the Big Ten. I shouldn't just be blindly guaranteeing 1 seat per conference. I don't think that format makes sense. Depending on your worldview, that's where you'll sit at the table when it comes to this argument, and you'll never get resolution. And then, look, let's just be real. As much as claims of SEC bias are thrown around this time of year, most of the time what I've observed is the logic being used from the folks claiming SEC bias is no more sound than the people they're throwing the claims at. It's just they come from a position of SEC hater. Their logic is just as twisted and backwards. It's just that they understand, well, we can sing this because there'll be a chorus behind us, because a lot of folks do dislike the SEC with good reason. And so it doesn't really matter if our logic has a leg to stand on. We'll just blindly yell it.
We all agree Alabama didn't get screwed. All of these teams had flaws. But going back to Saturday night, the way this thing played out was the worst case scenario, in my opinion, for Alabama. 24-7 at half, Clemson, 31-14 going into the fourth quarter. The interview going into the fourth quarter with Rhett Lashley on the sidelines, you could tell he was rattled. Like, we're probably not in this college football playoff at this moment. What do you think the number was? Because Dunaway asked this earlier. I said 10 or more. I think they would have been out. I think if it would have played the other way, I think if SMU would have blown a 17-point lead and lost the game, I think Alabama might have gotten in. I think this was the worst-case scenario, the way it played out for Alabama.
Yeah, I think double digits was the number. Mind you, just understand how stupid it is that we're throwing this around.
Yep.
The difference between 9 points or 10 points. But I do agree with you. I thought I was in a rental car shuttle at DFW, and everybody on the bus is, they're all watching their phone, they're watching the game. I wasn't saying a word because I'm an introvert and I hate being around people, but everyone else on the bus was talking. And that's what they were saying. They were saying, SMU, they got to cut this thing to within 7. As long as it's single digits, maybe like a one possession thing, they're going to be in versus going to be out. But you're right about Rhett Lashley. Rhett Lashley himself had not been affected by this in the past, but you could tell Rhett Lashley was like, he was scarred by what they did to FSU last year, to the point where he was freaking out yesterday, even yesterday morning. I can tell you, Rhett Lashley was very nervous that they were going to get left out. And I kind of get it. Like, I get where the sentiment's coming from, but I think double digits is the number. And then what I would have loved is alternate universe. Let's just watch that play out. And SMU gets left out. And then Ward Manuel has to come on and say, SMU didn't quite do enough. And then Reese Davis offers the follow-up, what would enough have been?
Oh, boy.
So the Ward Manuel would have had to dance his way around saying, if they could have kicked a garbage time field goal, that would have proved they were better.
That's right. Cut it to single digits. That's all we need to do.
Again, Bama didn't deserve to get in, but 11 coaches did not want Bama in. You saw Dabo immediately after game. That's a playoff team because Bama's ceiling is so high. Look, and they were so inconsistent, you obviously couldn't trust them. But over SMU and over Clemson and these other teams, Alabama would have had an opportunity to win this whole thing. Those teams, in my opinion, have no chance at winning this whole thing.
That's correct. So since someone is watching the show right now yelling, that's not the point, Lance, I will make their point for you because I agree with what you're saying. So to the person who's saying, well, that's not how we seed the tournament, we know. Both of us, correct me if I'm wrong, have said about 5 times in the last 10 minutes, Bama shouldn't have been in. So that point is conceded. The point that my guy here is making, and I'm backing up, is not that they should have been in. It's just kind of a little logic point of there are a lot of folks out there not only relieved that Bama's not in, they're relieved South Carolina's not in, and they're relieved Ole Miss is not in. I talked to more than a couple of them, which just means 3. I talked to 3 of them who said, yeah, Ole Miss would be the one if they got in that would be the most scared of because they've got a dynamic dual threat quarterback. They can run the ball well. They got really good playmakers at receiver, and the pass rush would be one of the best, if not the best in the entire field. We are very glad that team's out. Like the Ole Miss one, that was an even bigger shark fin than the Alabama shark fin.
I look at this bracket, though, and I'm not as excited about it as I thought I was going to be. Like when we did projections of the brackets back in August.
This is vintage Dunaway. You should know, yes.
Yeah, this is like me going to Graceland.
That's right.
And Graceland is smaller than I imagined it being.
That's right.
I did go to the Grand Canyon. It was everything I wanted it to be, but there have been things I've gone to that have disappointed me, including the tree at Rockefeller Center, smaller than I ever thought it was on television. This bracket, when we were doing the scenarios in August, I was like, oh, man, look at all the brands playing each other and everything. And we get here, and it's Arizona State, it's Boise State, it's SMU, it's Indiana. There's a part of me that sort of is an ESPN, ABC exec saying, I wish we had a few more brands in this thing. Am I wrong? Does this show the TV doesn't control everything? Because the brands would have been a little different, I believe, if they controlled everything.
I sure do hope people are paying attention to what you just said because it is a very sound argument. I've got a lot of people out there in my audience. You've probably got a lot in your audience, and there are a lot just on the college football streets who will swear to you this whole thing's rigged. It's all a production by the major networks, and the big brands will always get the access door that the little guy does not. Okay. Whether you think SMU or Alabama should have gotten in here, there was a viable argument going on. Like there was legit oxygen in the room for Alabama to make it in. I just ask those out there who believe that the nefarious powers that be always lean big brand over small brand. What happened here? They go on vacation? Did they just check out? Did they say, I'll be back? And then they got back. Oh, man, I missed the reveal. How does that happen? Not only is it Alabama left out, which I agree with for the 19th time, but you've also got 2 more SEC teams and Miami, Dunaway. Miami's also a big brand. And they're all out there just knocking on the door saying, let us in. And it's within marginable, reasonable doubt to let them in, and they didn't let them in. They put SMU in there. What happened there? Now, of course, the folks who claim that, the flat earthers out there of college football, it's this right here, and it's going to stomp feet. It's going to la, can't hear you. And then the next time that an SEC team or even like a big name Ohio State or Notre Dame gets benefit of the doubt, it'll just revert right back. But I think these kinds of data points are important because what just happened. You didn't misread the room. SMU got in at the expense of really 4 big brands lined up behind them.
I am convinced that Texas said we don't want to play SMU. Final hypothetical on Alabama. If they would have gotten in, Texas might have changed their tune because is it more realistic we get SMU at 12 playing Texas, or do you think they would have sent Alabama to Austin?
If you're right about what you're saying with SMU, Texas, and by the way, this is a conspiracy we need to dig on. We can't put this investigation to bed.
No, I will say publicly, I don't believe it because Clemson does have NFL defensive lineman, offensive lineman. SMU does not have maybe one in both those units. I would rather play, if I'm Texas, SMU than I would Clemson. Though Clemson has a lot of flaws, there are at least some NFL guys on that roster. There are not on the SMU trench.
Okay, but if you lose to Clemson, your season doesn't seem like a disaster. If you lose to SMU in the first round, it seems like a disaster.
So Jim, put Jim down. Chris Del Conte was not in the 6th floor window overlooking the street. Okay, so Jim is not in on the conspiracy.
Do not buy it.
That's not the Texas Dunaway knows. It is the Texas that some other people in the room know. I do agree. If you lose to Clemson, your season's over. If you lose to SMU, it's a documentary that we're going to watch 2 years from now. So it would be a little bit different. But let's just, for the sake of argument, say you're right. Then I think they would have sent Alabama to Austin. Wouldn't have been a rematch. I think the SEC would have been up in arms that 2 of their teams have to play in the first round. But then again, the SEC is already up in arms, and it doesn't seem to have swayed the committee. So would the committee have been swayed on first-round matchups, conference versus conference? I don't think so.
All right, he is Josh Pate, Josh Pate CFB on social media. Watch the Josh Pate College Football Show every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday. Great content there all the time. Pate, we always appreciate the time, man. Thank you very much.
We never asked you, though, who's going to win this thing?
Oh, yeah, who's going to win?
Nobody's talked about that. Like, I haven't heard one person say, man, I filled out this bracket. This is who I think is going to
win. Josh will be on with us again right before we start to play.
Well, it's up to Josh.
It's 11 days away.
Early blush, though. Who do you think wins this thing?
Wait a second. These games are going to happen?
Yeah, they're still going to play.
Ohio State was my pick.
Oh, really?
I'm not coming off of it. Yeah, they got to beat 5 teams or 4 teams higher caliber than any they played all year. But look, I love the way they looked against Michigan. So give me Ohio State all day.
Yeah, what's not to like there?
Yeah.
If only Tennessee had a defensive line like Michigan's. Oh, wait a minute.
Sadly, Ryan Day's got to play in front of a hostile crowd.
I know, exactly.
How about that point Herbstreit made?
Yes.
Former Buckeye, mind you. I kind of low-key would rather we go on the road for this one. Maybe a more environment on the road.
On the day his son committed to Michigan, by the way. I mean, what a day for Herbstreit that was.
Yeah, Ryan Day, no doubt, will get more barbs running out of the tunnel in Columbus than he would have in Knoxville.
Yeah, Heupel, they'll cheer for Heupel.
Yeah, and do you think, like,
end him.
I've heard, and I think it's a little over the top, but there might be some legitimacy to it. I heard Feinbaum this morning say if they lose that game to Tennessee, he believes Ryan Day will get fired.
Oh, my gosh.
There are some people who believe that are normally pretty credible. I'm not one of them.
That's crazy.
I'm not one of them because I will always think that's crazy. But normally it's just like lunacy fringe kind of screaming into the ether. This is not that. Although I still don't think it's legitimate. I'm just telling you what I've heard. There are some people who legitimately believe that.
All right. Second lesson depth wrap up. Thank you for the time, Pate. Always good to talk to you.
You guys.
All right, buddy. Take care. Josh Pate with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline.
And the show being brought to you by our friends at the Golfus, Brownie.
The Golfus is a great place to go for Christmas parties. Let me tell you what the Golfus is, first of all, and then I'll tell you why it's a great place to go for the Christmas parties. The Golfus is the best indoor golf simulator you could find anywhere in this area. It's right there already in business in Vestavia. Scott showing you on the screen. Coming soon to Highway 280 and also out in the Trussville area. Always dry and 70 degrees in the Golfus, so you never have to worry about the weather. Get rained out, play cold golf. You can play different competitions like scramble, best ball, alternate shot, or just play your own ball. Virtual driving game to work on your game if you just want to get better. But they have got great parties. Bring your own food, bring your own drink, bring your own clubs if you want. Gift certificates as well. They're digital. They can be scheduled to arrive in an email like on Christmas Day, so it's a surprise. They can mail it if you want. Any dollar amount. It's a great gift idea for the golfer in your life. What a unique gift. A gift certificate to the Golfist. Everything I'm talking about is on their website. Book there, thegolfist.com. Don't go to the office. Go to the Golfist, thegolfist.com.
Unfortunately, it's a fact. When guys start to lose their hair, a lot of these guys lose confidence. Get your confidence back with Dr. Beckenstein, best in the business. When I started to thin out a little bit, I asked around. Everybody said, you need to go see the guy that's been doing it for more than 2 decades. That is Dr. Beckenstein. For more than 20 years, women and men have turned their attention to Dr. B for a range of cosmetic and reconstructive procedures. He will use that experience, his advanced training, and genetic testing to help his patients fully understand the procedures they are considering. Call Dr. Beckenstein today, 205-319-0316, t3hair.net for more information. I'm doing that non-invasive treatment 3 times a week, 30 minutes each time. My hair is more than doubled in thickness. Brown is doing the same thing. Call today, schedule the consultation. Tell them the next round sent you, 205-319-0316.
Okay, here's our spotlight question today before he hits the open, brought to you by McCurry. Grade the committee, letter grade, A, B, C, D, F, on the job they did. Any way you want to judge it, A, B, C, D, F. Remember, they have their own rules. They didn't make the rules. Grade the committee. It's our spotlight. Tyler, hit the open, man.
The College Football Spotlight.
Sorry, I had to call. McCurry Van and Car Rental, the local rental company you can depend on. All kinds of vehicles to choose from. Trucks, SUVs, passenger vans. Easy to rent, in and out fast. Athens, Muscle Shoals, Huntsville, 2nd Avenue Northwest, Coleman, Skyland Boulevard, Tuscaloosa. Reserve your rental today, 256-559-1003, McCurryRentals.com. That's McCurryRentals.com.
Okay, you're first.
I'm going D. I think there were some obvious matchups you missed. Again, I think Clemson-Penn State is a brand matchup. SMU and Texas would have made so much sense because then you have 2 in-states along with. I do like the Indiana and Notre Dame matchup a lot. And I don't like the fact, and I don't know how you do this now because of what you had contractually set, but like Oregon and both Georgia are much more punished than Boise and Arizona State.
But that's the system that does that. It's not them. I know what you're saying. But
and I don't know how you figure that out. But like if you're SMU or Texas, you are absolutely loving this draw because you're almost double-digit favorites in this first round. And then you're going to be in the same situation in the second round if you win these games. Yep. They are going to be double-digit favorites. Texas would be over Arizona State. I think Penn State would be close to that over Boise State.
Yeah, and don't kid yourself. Whatever bowl game they play that in, Penn State will have a home field advantage with the crowd. They will carry more fans to that bowl game than Boise State will carry. Boise State will travel well. Penn State will have a crowd advantage. Maybe it won't be maybe it won't be 70-30, but it'll be closer to 60-40 than it will be 50-50 in that bowl game. Big brand, big school will travel more than Boise will be able to travel, in my opinion.
I guess they had one controversial decision to make. Now, everything else could create controversy, but they didn't have to create that controversy. One controversy was created for them, right, with SMU losing.
But I do think they could have salvaged by some of these first-round matchups.
Maybe.
I mean, I think the Texas-SMU was so obvious.
Yeah, but the only controversial decision they absolutely positively had to make was Bama-SMU. That's the only one they had to make.
So your grade is?
I mean, I think they are hamstrung by the regulation, so I'm going to be far kinder than Lance. I'd give them a B.
Yeah.
Another thing I would say on my D, Ward Manuel never seemed like he knew what was going on.
Well, he didn't.
Yeah, those guys never do when they come out.
They talk themselves into
circles. So why even
circles.
agree to it? I mean, you don't make any money really with this. I mean, all it can do is hurt your own brand.
They're trying to have transparency in those interviews, and it just confuses things.
Yeah. And that's why I give them a D, Brown, because they had a controversial decision to make only because of the mistakes they made in the rankings all season long, week to week. You can't not consider strength of schedule just on the last day, because then all of a sudden everyone's head spinning. Wait, SMU dropped from with that loss, they dropped all the way down to 17. It would blow people's mind. They made a mistake all along by propping teams up that didn't have a strong strength of schedule all along. If they had been using strength of schedule as a big factor, like a lot of people believe they should, then Ole Miss, Alabama, South Carolina would have been in a different position than they were down the stretch here these last few games. And maybe it wouldn't have been Alabama that would have gotten in. Maybe it would have been Ole Miss. Maybe it would have been South Carolina that got in. Maybe it would have been Miami that got in. They had that tough decision to make because they let game control and strength of schedule not be a big enough factor in their earlier releases. Their early rankings were too much like the AP poll and the coaches poll about the wins and the losses and not about who you beat, who you played. If they had done a better job with their first release, second release, third release, then SMU would have known.
Well, so in other words, they should have had SMU out of the 12.
They should
going
have never,
into ACC weekend.
Should have never been in the 12.
Yeah.
What had they done that should have had them in the 12? And really,
I could say the same of Boise.
With Boise, you could too.
Yeah.
And in reality, even though Texas was winning, once Texas lost to Georgia, you should have been like, well, who has Texas beat? Maybe Texas isn't where they should be.
Jim, they gave them the 5 seed.
And they were the 2 going in.
Right, but
they'd have been the 2 seed if they won it.
Yeah.
They would have at least beaten Georgia then. You could have said the same thing about Penn State, Indiana. They got, with that win-loss, you were propping them up along the way, and you get yourself into a bad place at the end that you really can't flip-flop it enough.
So, I sent one tweet Saturday night that everybody got upset about because after the outcome of the game, I'm like, it is going to be impossible to explain SMU out now. And Alabama fans got super upset.